In addition to the effective rim diameter, there are a number of hub dimensions that are critical to measure accurately to determine spoke length. Once again, we'll make good use of a caliper. Here is my prized Mitutoyo caliper, and we're going to use that to make four measurements. The first is the left flange diameter, then the right flange diameter, then the left flange to the center of the hub, known as the LCF, and lastly, the right flange to the center of the hub, known as the RCF. A good place to start is by measuring the flange diameters. So here we have the left flange diameter. This is from one hole on one side, one point of a hole, to the same point of a hole on the other side of the flange. And then we'll do the same thing for the right flange. Now, if this were a Shimano 105 hub, we would find that that hole-to-hole diameter is 45 millimeters. Now, here's my suggestion, is to always measure both flanges. Sometimes the left and right flanges look the same, but are not. Here I'm using my caliper to measure the whole flange diameter, center of hole to center of hole. Well, I've already gotten two of my four measurements. Let's move along and determine this one. This is the center to right flange distance, and this is the center to left flange distance. Now, these cannot be measured directly. We have to take some other measurements and then calculate those. This is my hub. Through the hub is an axle, and each hub has a lock nut on either end of it, and that there represents what's called the over lock nut width. And my Shimano 105 hub is a rear road bike hub, and so I get a overlock nut width of about 130 millimeters. These are some typical overlock nut widths. Front wheel 100 millimeters almost always. A rear track bike wheel often is 120 millimeters. A road bike typically 130. A rear mountain bike wheel often 135. Sometimes larger. Tandems about 140, sometimes 145. It's obviously something, though, that's quite easy to measure. I'm going to take four measurements of this hub, and you'll see it's a lot easier to take these measurements if you put the hub in a truing stand. This is the first one. This is the right flange to right lock nut, and we can see we've used a caliper to make that measurement there. Then we have on the left side the left flange to left lock nut, and there I'm measuring it with a caliper again. On the top, I have the right flange thickness that I'm measuring with a caliper, and then the left flange thickness, which I'm also measuring with a caliper. It's a good idea to actually measure the flange thicknesses of both the right and left flanges, because they may look the same, but don't assume that they are. Let's note a couple things about how my caliper is placed. Notice that the left end of the caliper, as we're looking at it, is right against a flange. It's not aligned against that little part right there. And the other side of the caliper is aligned directly against the riser or the upright of the truing stand, which is pretty much consistent with the placement of the lock nut. There's my hub with the dimensions I just recorded. If that is the 130 millimeter overlock nut width, then that line right there represents the center of the hub. You want to try to be accurate in these measurements, but if you come up with dimensions that are a few tenths of a millimeter one way or the other on some of these measurements here, it's not going to materially affect your spoke calculation. The hub can be divided up into two halves of 65 millimeters each. That distance right there then represents the center to right flange, and that distance there represents the center to left flange. So I take a little calculator. My center to right flange is equal to 65 minus 44.8 minus 3.5 and that is equal to 16.7. 16.7 is that distance right there, center to right flange. I do the same thing for the left flange. Center to left flange is once again 65 minus 28.8 minus 3.2, and that equals 33.0, and that's that distance right there, center to left flange. Those are the dimensions I need for my hub, which I can arrange in that little table. There's a great variety of hubs, and we measure them all the same way. Thanks to Velocity for letting me use some photos of theirs. Those are a couple of nice Velocity race road hubs. That's a front disc hub, and that's the rear disc hub. That's a track hub. Notice the big high flanges. Here is a flip-flop hub. You can use that for fixie on one side and single speed on the other. And here's a tandem hub. That's a big, long 145 millimeter tandem disc hub. All these are measured the same way though.